and reteach mankind the secrets of civilization. Every time this thing comes, it's shaya boo, sibuyela back to Stone Age. Yabona nje right now, everything of ours is electrical. If we get wiped out, what will remain? It's the clay tablets from the Sumerian age and the Egyptian. So, Inzalo LaNGa represents that for us. It is the place where we were reborn.
All the classic Revolution albums now available on Spotify, Apple Music, and on all digital music stores.
I'm happy because every time I get into these spiritual conversations, ngiyafunda, I get to learn. And for me, I kind of feel I use my, other people call it celebrity, or let me say my personality or popularity to sort of amplify different voices. I'm an entrepreneur, but our platform obviously focuses on lifestyle, culture, music, entertainment, and the most importantly, politics. And politics aside, once in a while here and there we'll have some politicians coming to share, and we will be having more political leaders coming on the platform since we are towards the elections in South Africa. The 2024 elections will be happening in May, so don't be surprised when you see a lot of political leaders come join us on the platform. But for me, what fascinates me is when I bring spiritual leaders with a lot of the knowledge, because there's just been this awakening that's been happening. And what I love with our social media platforms, especially TikTok, it has decentralized information. It has given people an opportunity to create platforms and share as much info as possible. And one person that I bumped into, I think it was during the lockdown, if I'm not mistaken, and I started getting familiar with his content, with his teachings, is the guest that I have here today. And I'm excited that he made his way to Johannesburg to sit down with us, because he doesn't live in Johannesburg. So people like him, and I'm gonna ask him as well, like, why don't you guys live like in the cities? Abantu abayihlalela, it's either ey'ntabeni noma mhlambe in their farms or just away from the cities. I don't know if it's a conscious decision, but I'm excited. Finally, siphethe umSHuMaYeli weLanga. Sawubona bhuti. I think maybe come closer and be comfortable. Just ukuthi abantu bazoku. I know. Just closer to the
like
mic
that.
nje. Just nje ukuthi abantu.
Is it fine?
All right now. Just nje ukuthi abantu bazokuzwa.
Okay.
Mhlawumbe I think singaqala lapho bhuti wami. Ngicela ukubonga isikhathi sakho.
Hayi, siyabonga for the opportunity mfethu. Sibonga for the opportunity.
I bumped into your videos on TikTok. Any intention that you had in joining TikTok? And tell me about your introduction into this social media space.
Let's start it as according to the dictates of the school of the red and blue. I will greet you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So me arriving on TikTok, sipushwa abefundisi. I come from a long line of abefundisi. Abantu kade bephethe ivangeli. Abantu kade beshumayele, abantu baguquke, abantu bashiya isidwaba. Yabo. So ulimi lami liqhamuka lapho. Kodwa ke because njengoba uhlezi lapho nami ngihlezi la, siba nezibongo eziyi-4 masizalwa. So lezi ke ezinye ibongo kwaqhamuka ke the mystics, kwaqhamuka the occultists, kwaqhamuka abantu who are interested kwizinkanyezi, the igigi, abantu umhlaba abawazi from the outside looking at it in. And then kwase kwazala ke umSHuMaYeli weLanga. Now as a kid growing up ngiyakhumbula, even after matric, weighing my options as umuntu omnyama, ngiyakhumbula I actually thought about going into ministry, but something wasn't I was still being called by the time into aviation. Yeah, ngumuntu wamoya, bengifuna nje ukusibona emoyeni.
Yeah.
So we went into aviation, and I got a chance to actually travel, leave SA. I think that is when the other aspects now started coming through. Yokuthi okay ndoda, ukhuliswe ngabashumayeli kodwa ke kunezinye ikhwama ke futhi ezingqongqozayo. There's the mystics and everyone else who wants to come through and say manje sila. And so I found myself at a dilemma again now. Ukuthi we are at the morning of the Aquarian age. So heading into the Aquarian age. Abanye bazothi we are in the Aquarian age. So ngase ngathi ke zihlwele badala asisakwazi ke manje ukufundisa ngoJesu. Lo benkhumula abantu ngabo izidwaba. Lo Jesu lona kumele simambule. We need to strip down this concept and this philosophy kaJesu. We need to strip down idlozi because manje ngangihlezi with an internal conflict. Kunabashumayeli ngala, kunabesintu ngala. So I was like, let's strip down this concept. Bathu chaza ukuthini indodana? Ngathi iBhayibheli lithi God is light. And once safika kuleyo ndawo ila kwafika kwathi khona. You know, kwatholakala ukuthula nokuphumula. Masifika ekutheni God is light. Sathi futhi masi ukukhanya sikwembula. Sathola the creative principle kaNkulunkulu, ugesi, negative electricity and positive electricity. Mazidansa ke sizihlangane zisiphe ukukhanya. And that is now became umSHuMaYeli LaNGa. We are preachers of ukukhanya, preachers of the light. It is still abafundisi bamalangeni, umSHuMaYeli LaNGa, who have now come back. The cloak sebeyishintshile. The cloak is manje. The cloak of we are no longer in the age of believing and it. We are now in the age of knowing. And for us to know, we are no longer looking at uJesu, the historical man, but we are looking at uJesu in the aspect of the macrocosm and the microcosm. Sibheke ubuNkulunkulu as ukukhanya. Sibuda we fought enough ngokuthi hey, the Jews were this color, uJesu was black, uJesu was. I came up from those ranks, but because I had always had an interest in the stars, so le genge le yama occultists and the mystics engihamba nazo, they would always say, go on further, go on further. So this is happening to me. Oh, like I said, I'm actually from Pietermaritzburg. I think I'm all over the place, but anyway,
Sure.
I grew up in Pietermaritzburg under a very staunch Christian family. So to find myself now at a place where I can say, no, definitely, I'm still umSHuMaYeli, but manje sesambulile. Siyazalwa kuma families ethu. Mawuzalwa uzalwa uthwele nguma wakho nguNkulunkulu. Sivula amehlo sifike enyameni uma wakho akubambe ngesandla. And then sifike la wena uma wakho kumele akudedele wazi uNkulunkulu lo ongekho enyameni, but the one unjani ongale kwimfihlakalo. So that is where now mangifika ke lapha ngase ngathi okay, hayi uNkulunkulu ukukhanya. And then that is where the lessons now broke down. I hope I'm making sense.
Njoba bengisho ngithi you don't stay in the cities.
Yeah.
Is that by choice or are you somebody who is forced to be away from the cities? Is it a conscious decision?
I would like to think initially it came as an Adventist, Seventh-day Adventist, listening to the likes of Oba Mpongo, you know. So message Sabata. The foundation it's based on Revelation man. It says get out of her, my people. Get out of her as in get out of the Sodom and Gomorrah or the Babylon. Move on over to the mountains. Because when the cataclysms come to the cities, make sure you are outside. So what started out as that, as ngikhula and coming to terms with what I am and who I have to be in society in order for me to be able to learn certain things, ezintabeni, away from society. I'm a hermit. I'm a hermit through and through. Abantu bayangikhathaza. So that is how the build-up happened. That was the initial message. And then mase ngifika lapha, I'm actually realizing that no, vele bekumele ube lana. Because kunabaningi balezi indawo that you must always be next to as umpristi phakathi kwabantu.
We are creating a relationship, and
Yeah.
I'm glad ukuthi usivakashela namhlanje. You came to Johannesburg to do other things, but we felt ukuthi while you are here, let's do a nice introduction and at least introduce as one of the friends of the show moving forward. And mina ngi student, and I
Likewise.
always want to learn from different people. Namanje nje angazi lutho. Ngivele ngivula indlebe yami ngifunde kuwo wonke umuntu engihlangana naye, and all these different guests that get to visit us. Maybe just for the sake of today as an introductory episode, what would you like for us to, let me not necessarily say teach. I wouldn't want to put you in a position where you're a bit maybe under pressure. Man, I must teach. But I mean, what would you like for us to think for this first episode or this introductory episode to focus on as far as what's been going on out there is concerned, and for our audience of young people out there, what would you like for us to focus on today?
We can start with the fact that siphuma from the winter solstice, which means our sun has been reborn. And as people who are living in the age of awareness, the age of awakening, by the way, this thing that is happening to abantu abamnyama, it's not just us, it is the time that we are in. I find it imperative that we are able to get to understand ukuthi siqala kuphi, and what did the ancients mean when they would say, for example, ngiqonda indlela enyukayo. Le ndlela beginning ekuzalweni kwelanga, out of the winter solstice. Umsebenzi wami right now is ukutshengisa abantu ukuthi it does not matter whether you are Muslim, Christian, African spirituality, atheist, it doesn't matter ukuthi usebenzisa which of those religions. Sonke silandela the light, ilanga. Hence umSHuMaYeli belanga. Another name I go by is ilanga. Sonke silandela ke leli langa. So in highlighting that, lesson esisuka ngayo right now, siqala ngokuthi sazi ukuthi ene ilanga liphuma nini from the winter solstice, and what does it mean for us as abantu abalandela ilanga. Uyakhumbula amasicula singama-Christian sithi silala naye, sivuka naye. Sivuka naye ke manje. Siyaphakama siqonde ekhaya labangcwele kuphi? eJerusalem. eJerusalem marking the summer solstice. So this is a journey that each and every one of us takes, not just physically through with ilanga, but we also take it spiritually, as represented as the journey of ukukhanya. Babeyibeke eBhayibhelini bathi imana yayidescenda iyohlala phansi. Masihlale phansi ke ukukhanya kumele isuke from the root chakra, which is, or which we can liken to the winter solstice. Bese yaphakama ibuyele ekhaya ezulwini, which is the head, the heaven, the heaved up place. So that is the message. Now I understand ukuthi sibaningi that we are now saying, guys, indlela ilaphaya, and wonke umuntu ufuna ukuthi indlela ilana, kodwa there is not enough of us who are saying indlela i-one bafethu. Ukuthi ke uyi-express kanjani leyo ndlela leyo kuya ngokuthi wena nezihlwele zakho and your being ni comfortable kangakanani ukuhamba ngaleyo ndlela. Uyabona, singasitholi now where we are trying to impose izindlela zethu kwabantu. Hence sithi thina sifundisa ngokukhanya. The example is ilanga. If you want to call ilanga Zeus, you want to call it Mvelinqangi, you want to call it, that one is up to you. Kodwa the lessons ezila, the lessons esebhayibhelini, the lessons that are in the writings of the East, the writings of the North, bonke balandela umalangeni, which is the sun.
Excuse me, you're talking about the birth of the sun, and that's a very common name nowadays. We hear it quite a lot, and some of us do visit Inzalo LaNGa. For me, it was actually my first time last year. Inzalo LaNGa.
In Inzalo LaNGa as a place, legend teaches us that it is where the sun is reborn, the sun being, it is where the current version of humanity bathi hila aqhamuke khona. That is what Inzalo LaNGa is for us. I don't know if you get me.
No, ngiyathanda ukuthi uyicacise even further. Mina take me as a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Who knows nothing. Because I don't. I'm just a student of life.
Ngizoyingenaphi? Angiyingene, awuthi ngiyingene la.
And ngiyathanda futhi nokuthi uphethe iBhayibheli lakho lapho. Indaba My Children.
Yes.
By the late great Khokho Mutwa. Lala ngoxolo baba. Lala ngoxolo Khokho.
Yebo.
Siyabonga ngeimfundiso, siyabonga ngokusibhalela incwadi. Siyabonga ngayo yonke imilayezo oyibhalile noyikhulumile kuma videos. Nakuma interviews ayenzakela agcwele ku internet. If there's one thing that you've done for us baba, ukushare information on camera nokuthi ubhale incwadi. Umsebenzi omkhulu kakhulu owenzile baba. Lapho esikhona namhlanje kungenxa yakho. Ukuthi siqhubekele phambili nje ngale mfundiso. And I just had to honor Khokho Mutwa because wherever he is in this room.
Yes.
As I can see, you've got his book. And I can see that you've had it for many years.
Yeah,
I know.
iBhayibheli.
iBhayibheli alisilisha. Sure.
iBhayibheli. So kunendaba la. Ngithanda ukuyiqala lana because sometimes kubantu bethu uma uzoqala indaba usukhuluma ngezinto zangaphandle bayagxuma. People jump, yabo. So in the book here, we find the story of Odu and Amarava. Now, to understand Inzalo LaNGa, Odu and Amarava find themselves now in a boat that looks like a fish. uNkulunkulu, in the form of the feminine spirit, Unina Vanuma, he gives them the instruction, get on this boat and you guys will go and restart humanity. So now you will find you will not find this contextualized a lot in the writings of Africa, or I'm yet to come across it. Where it became very clear was the teachings of the East, where they will talk about the yugas. Bechaza ukuthi umhlaba, it goes through a phase, just like us, siyaphefumula. It goes through that. It goes, but it goes through a creation phase, and then it goes through a phase where iyazibulala, or it's self-imploding, or self-collapsing, njengoba sibona nje with the global warming and things like that. So umhlaba does that. Like inkositini, it does this, and then uphinde ubuye. So every time mawubuya lo mhlaba, kuba nama cataclysms enzakalayo. And one of those cataclysms, it becomes flooding. Njengoba sibona nje ukuthi ama-poles ayamelta. Was it last year or the other year? In Pakistan, they lost a landmass the size of Britain.
Sure.
So, iyakhala already insimbi. The waters are coming. Ey'ntabeni wemadoda. But angithi kuqala kancane ngithi. So, this is happening because of this is where now I needed a boat. Umhlaba wethu every 12,000 years. Singawabambi kakhulu ama-dates ne, because the ancients, the Owanes, or as Ubaba Mutwa would put it, abo wowane. The dates they would use as teachings. So every about 12,000 years, i-North Pole, the celestial North Pole yomhlaba yethu, Mount Olympus, Mount Zion, that is our North Pole. Iyashifta. Now you can imagine i-magnetic pole yethu ukuthi ene what's also involved there is the sea currents, the winds. You understand? The flows that are within umhlaba ngaphakathi, the lava and things like that. So you can imagine when a pole shift happens, the destruction, what it means destruction-wise on our planet. So the destruction that always comes time and time again, even though eBhayibhelini it is now allegorized and told the way it is told, this thing is a given in nature. We change our pole star. Right now we are sitting at Polaris, but there was a time when the pole star was in Draco. That is why you will find in a lot of our teachings bazoloke bekhuluma ngenyoka or bakhuluma ngenkanyamba. So kunenkanyamba la in our sky. It's probably the biggest constellation that we have, uDraco. So at some point in North Pole itayibheke lapho. Now the ancients bayazazi lezi zinto, so you will find a lot of tales where bazothi, those who are in the know, when they've measured babona ukuthi okay it's coming, they get off planet. Abanye they find ways to make sure that you survive whatever that is coming. And then when it's time to rebuild, they will come to lezi zindawo like Inzalo LaNGa. That is when our humanity will be what? Will be retaught. If there were survivors, bazokwehla, akade benyukile, bebalekela, and ithatha isikhathi lento, bayabaleka, mabebuya, if they are survivors, babuya ke sebe abakhulu, or as the Sumerians put it, the Abkalu, and reteach mankind the secrets of civilization. Every time this thing comes, it's shaya boo, sibuyela back to Stone Age. Yabona nje right now, everything of ours is electrical. If we get wiped out, what will remain? It's the clay tablets from the Sumerian age and the Egyptian. So, Inzalo LaNGa represents that for us. It is the place where we were reborn.
Siyabonga.
Thanks, buddy.
Nali kofi siyabonga. Siyabonga. Inzalo LaNGa is a place where we were reborn.
Yes. I say reborn because it is cyclic. It is not just an event that happened once. Or do an Amarava, or you will say Adam and Eve. It's a cyclic thing that plays out on the earth. The teachings of the East by Biza Kalpa. Bazotene Kalpa, that is the entire age of umhlaba from the time, I don't want to get too technical in terms of the astronomy. From the time umhlaba ufoma, wenza indilinga leyana, and get to a state where it can now house life. And then get to a state where it can no longer house life, and then iqale futhi isibhidlize to that point again where it's going to start. These are the Kalpa, and then the creation, bazothi it is the day of Brahma, and then the night, bathu Brahma uselele or Brahma usevukile. Baz contextualize, baz ukuthi no, ama cycles ethu ahamba kanje. Into engiyithanda kakhulu ngobaba uMutwa. Ubaba uMutwa was well traveled. Ufunde from everyone. And then was thatha zonke lezi indaba was donsa as indaba of humanity. That is why I must check here. There's no timeline. Because the span is just, you understand? Because we are talking about uOdu no Amarav. Into emnandi kubaba. Yabona njengoba we've got this thing now which we the black people, we are the original race and the melanin is making us do this. Ubaba says the current Bantu, they come from a half-breed Odu who was created from beasts in the field. and the original stock of the Amarire, the original red root race, yahlanganiswa, and then kwazalwa the modern man. You know, so ubaba had a way make it's as if we're born ubaba uthi yabona inkinga lapha. So contextualized in the story. No, calm down. Even you are also, you are now a composite. So this thing, sometimes we get carried away with we are the original race and we are this, we get this superiority complex. There's ways ubaba dila ngazo na. They also deals with it when he talks about the transmigration of the soul. The seven steps of the transmigration of the soul, which also goes back to this age that we're talking about. Also, it's all like contextualizer as the 7 worlds. Or I don't know if you've seen those maps where they are showing 7 continents, or they will show 7 layers.
Yeah.
They're actually teaching with the thing. It's an age. Z14 masses pelel. How many? Z14. In the north, ekemu, but mabexoxa isitory sika-Set, but Set is cut into 14 pieces. And Tina City, we are on the 7th Manvantara, and there's 6 behind us. We are on the 7th, and there's unezinye ngaphambili to make that 14. So ubaba were using that 7 again. Humanity, out of that 7, akambeki at the top, akambeki foot at the bottom, umbeka in the middle. We start out as grass, the consciousness. Umayibeka the transmigration of the soul. But njengoba ngisho ukuthi in that lesson, it is also talking about the ages. So you start out at grass phase, then you go to plant, then you go to tree, then you hit human phase, then you get to reptilian, then you go bird, and then you go to the stars. We are returning now to your pure essence. I understand abantu, they understand it as you literally go to a star. No, it's saying you go back to your pure essence. On a more corporeal form, we return to the golden age, of which, if we are bigger, like indaba, my children, when the cataclysm comes, because every time a new age begins, a cataclysm comes. So Baba Mutwa makes it very clear that you understand these, when the scientist uSahareli put mankind at the pinnacle of technology at that time, they were in the golden age. That's why Baba Ati Amarire was living in a golden hut. There's a lot of we found the account was, he talks about gold, because he is highlighting that humanity is at that golden age. I can't remember where I was going.
No, Khubeka. And I love it when you say, on Indaba, my children, there is no timeline. Ubaba uyicacisile indaba and uhlanganisa yonke imfundiso ayewabusiswa ngayo in all of his travels, and everything he's had to go through. Ubaba has had an interesting life, because once you listen to his interviews, you also hear of some of the things that he had to go through himself.
Yes.
There's a story that he tells of him being in Zimbabwe and being abducted by what you would call so-called aliens, and them performing some sort of operations or researches on him. And he would say he's got these vague memories of these beings looking at him as if stretcher kanje. Kodwa it was inside the mountains somewhere in Zimbabwe. And anyone who hasn't watched any of those videos, or maybe if this sounds like it's a movie.
It's the Matopo Hills.
Yes, sorry.
It's the Matopo Hills where Rhodes is buried, funny enough.
Is Rhodes buried there?
Yes, Rhodes, okay. I stand corrected, but if I remember correctly, Rhodes is buried in the Matopo.
And apparently when you go to those mountains, most people when they go to those mountains never come back.
Yes.
And he talks about having survived, and when he came out of that mountain, he was just a mess. And he was just walking in this village, and he was just looking for help, and he mentions that he was naked. It's a very touching story.
It is.
Just that one instance gives you an idea of what Ubaba has had to go through.
Yeah.
And then he also goes deeper into him speaking maybe some other things I wouldn't want to speak about them on camera. I want you guys to go do your own research. Kodwa they're very touching. They're very emotional. And that's why I say Obaba went through a lot. And I love the fact that he wrote his teachings, not only on one book, on a lot of books. And as many videos that he could do, he did. Although he would say, some people also took advantage of him. Even on the books that he wrote, apparently he didn't have ownership of the books.
Somehow that there's this naivety that comes over spiritual people. I am yet to understand it myself. It's like they become babes. Normally, these are they. You have to have the mind of a child. You need to have the mind of a child. Something I think you go to that phase so that you can be this transmitter or now in the human aspect where uhlala nabantu who are vibrating, I hate using those words, who are eating very low from the tree of life, iba inkinga because they come to take. They come to take, and that office vele it needs you to give. You will give. I'm married to umuntu kanjalo, my wife. She gives like, wait. That is just the nature of that office, and it's so unfortunate because we have not built a long-lasting. Should I say that though? Because I mean, our spirituality until a couple of years ago, it was illegal. I mean, that active in Kumbula Kahle, it still stands. We are still contextualized under the Witchcraft Act. So we can't even say we have not done this or that because we are still at an infancy stage. Going forward, we need to create houses that can take care of abantu abanjeyana. Because another issue that I'm currently realizing from our people, we do not know how to place abantu, to say, okay, this is a teacher. That one is an experimentalist. He experiments. They are hands-on. They are low. That's art. His music. When it comes to this aspect of umoya, abantu sifuna ukubalampa together. We want abantu to do yonke into kanye kanye. If umuntu uyakubona ukuthi unokhuluma izinto zomoya, interpret a dream for me. Sitshele ngomlando wakaZulu. Sifuna yonke into and iyasishaya because siyahluleka ukubona ukuthi okay, story kunabantu who are storytellers, indaba abayiphethe, it's mythology. It's not necessarily umlando. It is mythology that is taught in a way that it teaches metaphysics, cosmology, cosmogony, astrology, astronomy, all those sacred sciences zakudala. If you look in between the lines, those are the teachings that you are being given. Iyasishaya lento le to differentiate, and then we find ourselves not able to acknowledge abantu besaphila and not able to give abantu the pedestals that are needed to actually get abantu to teach abantu bathole ulwazi. That one we are still finding very difficult. We fight abantu who are trying to teach us, only for us when we are at a place where we're like, I think he was right, and then umuntu mase sedlulile or semdala sephelwa amandla, then we want to imagine the history as South Africa. Should the black man ngalesa sikhathi amuzwe ubaba Mutwa, ngabe sikuphi today? If the black man was conscious enough to say, asike simtholele indawo lo baba azohlala kuyo, angahambi ehlala emaplazini amabhunu la kwezinye indawo, asimtholele nje indawo la lo nabafana naye bahambe bayohlala lapho. Let's invest in lento abayenzayo abayikhulumayo. Bakhuluma another type of science. You and me, we were taught Cartesian-based philosophy. Cartesian-based philosophy when it comes to science. Kunabantu who are talking science and physics, which is not based on Cartesian Cartesian being atomism, bombarding particles, swooshing electrons and things like that. Kunabantu bethu abaphethe an entire science of subquanta phenomena. And Ubaba Mutwa was one of them. That is why kunabantu who, that I came across this principle in the book Outliers. I'm bad with authors. I can't remember who it was written by.
Malcolm Gladwell.
Thank you. Thank you. And he placed the 10,000 hour mark for mastery. That is why you will find abantu who have reached that place. They will just, because there's a certain way that we contextualize ezinye izinto zethu. And we need to give such people those avenues to comfortably shut themselves out in society. We need to be our black diamonds as abantu abamnyama right now, they should be comfortable enough to say, here's the funding, we'll come back to you in 10 years. That is how other countries do it. They will have a PSYOPs department. Okay, anibafake indabana in the mountains. Bavalele military thingy. Keep them there. Let them work. Mabebuya, what have you created? Can we use it as a weapon? Unfortunately, sometimes that's where it goes. But my point is, as abantu abamnyama, that is where some of ama-fans ethu should be going to say, lezi zinto zesintu esithi siyazenza. Can we actually put the finances? Can we put the doctorates behind it? Can we put the minds that have been given the skills of ukuhlukanisa izinto, ukuthathamula, and give our way a chance? Now, if we are there when ubaba was around, because ubeyiphethe, I've sat with some people mabekhuluma about the accounts nezinto abazibona when they would visit ubaba. They, because for him these worlds were just somehow it was a crossroad of all these worlds. I remember he was being interviewed by a white woman. Ngisanda kuyibona the bembuzo ukuthi how uhamba no Amarava, what was it like? What does Amarava say? And he goes, I'm back. Because you can see which he's like, how do I begin contextualizing into ekhulunywa ngumuntu ongahlezi in this plane? By izinto ezikwazi ukubona 200,000, 4 million years this way, 4 million years that way. How do I contextualize lento le ngikutshela ukuthi lo muntu ukhuluma kanje, lo muntu ucabanga kanje? How? Uqala ngaphi? And he was a crossroad for yonke lento le. And they are coming, abanye abazofana naye. They are coming. Abanye they just need njoba ngisho nje these lessons ukuthi uzokwazi ukubona ukuthi there's no need to fight here. There's no need to get into a psychosis because ususihlukanisile lezi zinto ukuthi kuneBhayibheli ngala, kunesinto ngala, there is no need, because if already usubona ngale, you belong to the occult side of things. And mangithi occult or the dark, angikhulumi ngokuthi ke manje ke seku nobu evil or sekunobu sathane. Masithi occult or masithi dark, sikhuluma ngezinto that are not available to our senses. Things that our senses, our 5 senses, are dark too. But more hlehla ubuyela to the indigenous people, yokwedam bayazi ukuthi if ufuna, for example, hearing yethu, it's between 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Anything ngale, we can't pick it up. But thina as abantu bempande siyazi ukuthi no, if usufuna ukudlulela ngale, nansi impande. Sight, we have a range. The electromagnetic spectrum. Siyazi ukuthi ene amehlo ethu aqala from about 400 nanometers coming down to about 700 nanometers. If ufuna ukuyipusha in any other direction, kuneyindlela of doing such things. if uyifuna ukuyipusha to go uthi mawungena within and you observe sub-quanta phenomena kuneyindlela just because lezi indlela siganga ngazo ufuna ukugijimisa next door wakho ufuna ukugijimisa does not mean it cannot be applied differently. Where am I?
Baluleka why kumele siye enzalo yelanga yingani ukubaluleka kwenzalo yelanga yini why should every black person especially from South Africa go and experience inzalo yelanga?
I once did we used to do flights between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Benginalo baba nje okade nje in the flight yabo.
Yeah.
And then he's angibone and then he says I had a longer close but not that big because
taking time to grow this thing.
Ati, what's this?
Yeah. Oh, you had a longer jab. Why did you kunda it though?
No, every now and again I just to do
Oh, okay.
especially Mangzo and I have to go meet people and stuff.
Okay.
Jokingly I'm like it's wisdom. He looks at me and then I gave him isandla sami at kings don't shake foreigners.
Kings don't shake for
foreigners.
or foreigners.
Or abantu man.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, sorry for overstepping my
Boundaries.
So sixoxeke uphuma phi ndoda? Athi ngiphuma enzalo yelanga. How? Ngithi mina inzalo yelanga athi how do you know that? Ngithi it's my job to know that. And he actually said, yeah, I don't know whether he still does it, but at that time he was like, it's his annual pilgrim. He was like, they used to do it with a few kings ala Africa. The time esasebenzela ubaba uMuammar Gaddafi. It's things that bebezama ukusihlanganisa as African kings ukuthi guys sinenkaba kunendawo yethu la esilanda khona amandla. Because that's what he said. He said I go there to get power. He operates on the Christian aspects of things, so he was like, I go there to pray. That is where we were born, all of us. So, in a space where we've become very whimsical concerning our origins, we've got the cradle of humankind. We've got umSHuMaYeli there, who they are now realizing that umSHuMaYeli actually observed a ritual as to how they bury their dead. They would even do certain scratches on the thingy, representing the earliest forms of art. The documentary is on Netflix. You must check it out.
What is it called?
Unknown, A Valley of Bones.
There's many unknown episodes. Which one is it?
It's on my TikTok thingy. The Lona is Unknown, The Valley of Bones or something.
The Valley of Bones.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
Something like that.
Let me document.
Yeah.
Let me just write it down. Sure.
So, abantu bethu, we are many among us who do not want to recognize or come to terms with, guys, this is part of the family tree. You know, and so when we have people or we have data which says, guys, this family tree in this epoch, that is where it was rebirthed. For me, it is worth checking out, you know, just to get there and sink your feet, you know, to help you with certain realizations. So we see actually there's more to this than we would like to think. Many of us, we were brainwashed into this version of creation where a God, wabumba, or create Adam no Eve, you know. We are not aware which actually there are places which are marked as which were no la, nizalelwe la. Some of you can be found there in the cradle of humankind. And the more it data is changing, so guys, these people, bebefana nathi. You know, they are part of the family tree. Sifuna ukuhlehla. You know, so as people abantu abaqhamuka from Christian backgrounds, even on the side, we are still in denial about that fact. Ukuthi asiqhumanga etsheni that there was this gradual development of consciousness. Njengoba we went through those phases and it's consciousness gradually developing The other day they found remains which showed this specific type of variation of human, they died out because the other types were cannibalizing them. The bone were showing this portion of inyama was ikishiwe in such a way that this was cooked. That is all part of our human journey, and we need to get to a space where there isn't aspects of us where sifuna uzphika and then sitai. We need to get to a place where we embrace the left hand and the right hand comfortably. And for me, Inzalo LaNGa represents leyo ndawo. Inzalo LaNGa also represents a space where you awuzizwa ngendaba uzozibonela wena ukuthi no, actually our ancestors had a very detailed stalo, because when you are there within those rocks, just as he was like hey bo yo because zida you look up uboniche, no one has to be explaining into eningi, uyazibonela wena ngawakho amehlo ukuthi actually let's besintswempu man, it's good ukuthi sithi yeah besintswempu, but it's even better when we start taking these pilgrimages to places where sibona ngawethu amehlo ukuthi no, actually we had this. There is a certain level of understanding, that we had concerning cosmology, concerning stalo, and it is the more we make connections. Ngiyakhumbula my first time safike saphahla, which we joined with igek sahamba sahlangana laphayana,
the great empire of Kemet.
Yes,
under the leadership of umkhulu Ntsingizi.
Yes,
siyabonga mkhulu, siyabonga ngomsebenzi omuhle.
No, sorry. That year babengekho kwakukhona uGogo Rutendo.
Yep. Khokho Grace. Oh, Khokho Rutendo.
Khokho Rutendo, yeah.
Okay, may Khokho Grace's soul rest in peace. Uqeda ukushiya naye a couple of months back, yeah.
Oh.
From the northwest. Anyway.
So safike saphahla around those and it was a humbling experience, because I love the stars. Seek ye first the starry kingdom of God, and everything else shall be added unto thee, because all our races and civilizations, they've placed izindaba zethu in the stars. If you go to the Kwedam, I'm still trying to learn the language of the indigenous people, where me and you come from, by the way. We come from the indigenous community. Actually, that is one of the things we must start doing, running DNA between Batembu, Bapedi, so that we start seeing in actuality. No, guys, actually, the Kwe or those Activa, the Koi or the Sen, it's us. It's still us with a bit of mingling from Abantu who are coming from different parts of the world. But that is us at our core. That is still us. Yeah, so for me, it's beautiful because iyasihlanganisa. A lot of abantu bethu, they say ngifuna impande yami, I want my root, and then uzophelela in the last 200 or 500 years. But no, go back that. Hlehla, Setswana, Sotho, Zulu ziphele. Phinda uhlehle, and you will arrive at the Kwe languages, the Cham, and all those because that is us. That is our Inzulu, that much indigenous yethu. So sisaloka nje siyahlehla at a pace where abantu are still comfortable, because many of us have fallen for this idea ukuthi no, we are separate people, and and laba bantu baphethe when it comes to impande baphethe ulwazi oluningi. And when it comes to deciphering, we had a group called Bona Abakhulu Basekhemu. It was a WhatsApp group. I was invited by Umalata Kwena. He goes by the name Muruti or Baruti on Facebook. A madman, but a brilliant man. Spam. So we had a group there where we would actually discuss these things.
Sorry to this. When you say madman, what do you mean?
Yeah. No, there's levels of there's levels of ukuhlanya. No, yeah, that man uhlanya. When it comes to lolwazi.
Okay.
Uhlanya.
Yeah.
People who are in that group, they understand
Deep
what I
in
mean.
knowledge, right?
And in that deny, we born Pumapi. It's just anything is uhlanya. So, and we had a band who understood these indigenous languages. So he's in the north. So befika lahlela in the north. Kunezangoma, kuneinyanga zilahlele from the south. Sihlanganise, and then we take it to the indigenous languages, and boom. Sometimes we will take English words, break them down to their Pi roots, and boom, we find it in Kwe. Because the click languages, those are the oldest and the original languages.
Khokho Credo Mutwa says, if you go and decipher the Sumerian texts or Sumerian languages, you find that it's got a lot of Bantu languages or the Bantu languages in it.
I can believe that. I do believe that. I shouldn't say it's a matter of belief. The alphabet, guys, iphuma in our continent. The alphabet as we know it today, it comes from the continent. Now, I understand the scholars who would rather say, no, the alphabet, Sumer predates Egypt, depending on how they date these things. So they will always give the civilization that is outside the continent a further back date than a civilization that is in the continent. Those were some of the things that we were actually looking at in that group. We would take words. That is why I can say to you, Apkalu, that's a Sumerian word. Apkalu, that's why I can say to you, Abakul. Because that is what we were dealing with, being able to break down words. That is why Mutwa could say Wowane instead of saying the Owanes, as how they would put it in the north. Mabefundisa about the Labantu Laba, the wisdom keepers, that see to it that every time we go through these things, and between these 12,000, there are micro disasters that happen as well. But those we can touch on another subject. But there's always a class of people that makes sure that if such things happen, ulwazi to sustain humanity will remain. And that is the basic laws. And as abalandeli belanga, one of the realizations we've had, the reason why there is such a in terms of intwaso, outside of abantu who are trying to make him mad, but there is a very strong pull. We need to get this knowledge out of umSHuMaYeli and more into the physical, because we need to be able to self-sustain should any of these things they start becoming a reality sooner than we thought. We already, we know about the ones that every 10 years and things like that. But manje seqhamuka ezinye singa, imoya kade amanzi afuna Cape Town na uzwile, but the whole waterfront ngathi amanzi afuna ukubuya back to where they were. So if civilization yethu, if something were to happen, they've been talking about it, a grid collapse. It collapses to such a way that they can't even get it back up. Where are the wisdom keepers? Abobana bakwazi ukulapha. How many books are they still out there right now? So excuse me. You need to be able to be self-sufficient. Now, as abalandeli belanga, we are realizing that we've got impande covered. There's certain arts that are hidden that still need to be ziphotululwe so that we can start using them on a day-to-day basis. It's useless uhlonishela ukuthi wena ayi lightning uthi umuntu umshala nge-lightning, but we can't take that very same lightning which can power Johannesburg for 20 years if only we are able to just kwazi ukuyibamba siharness. For me, it doesn't make sense. We need to research. I remember with these guys, but say UJ, what they were saying to these guys, it's fine, keep the knowledge, we shy. We will tell you, Ishayla. ishayela, and we will harvest. Because it's as simple as that, the way we see it. If you have the knowledge, let's syncretize all this knowledge. Stop the fights. Hey, this is Western knowledge. This is the alphabet. Nalo lwazi liqhamuka kwinkaba, and then it bloomed into all the other continents. In actuality, we cannot say there's Western knowledge, there's law. It is still ulwazi lwethu. It is just that bonake, because they are more inclined to the left brain sphere. Bayihlakaza. They are taking this one whole thing, bayihlakaza into different things, into, ibe into eyiningi, so that they can be able to use it in a form engeke ibulale, if I can put it like that. With the science yethu, we need to be that generation makuthiwa yabulala lento le, thina sithi ibulala kangakanani. And then we go and try and measure it, and then try and see ukuthi singayisebenzisa kanjani. Baningi abantu abadlala with huge amounts of potential as far as the energy is concerned, but because they come from a closed system, they cannot see ukuthi application yalento le ungayivula so much that actually we can even revolutionize the transport. I know I'm thinking too far, but to think even more closer, to be more practical, let me just use, we can revolutionize how we are building homes. That basic structure nje esiyaziyo of that hut, we can use the knowledge esinayo, revolutionize and yenze i-sense for today. This thing abayibizo nge-eco culture, eco environments, we should be leading those spaces. But we cannot until we actually start researching nithini. The challenge esinayo right now is those who are in the know, academia-wise, nithini. They are asking them based on Cartesian science, like I said, bombarding atoms and particles. Not understanding that is just one way of looking at this thing. Unfortunately, when we were given education, we were told there's an electron that is swooshing here. That light, there's photons, there's that is what is happening. But if we were to go cut that cable, it's not going to bleed photons, it's not going to bleed electrons. So where is it then? It's a concept. It's a concept which has been structured for one type of philosophy or one type of physics in a structure yayo. Now, lento yenziwa ke ngesintu. We need to find that structure.
Wonke umuntu emhlabeni umsika ngerazor la esandleni uphuma igazi. Igazi liyafana libovu. Kodwa kuthiwa khona into ethile eyenza abantu abamnyama abahluke kubo bonke abantu emhlabeni, and they would say it's called melanin. What is melanin, and what's the relationship between melanin and dark matter? What is dark matter?
Hey, this one has cost me a few friends.
It's cost you a few friends.
A few friends, yeah.
Why?
Let me give a bit of background.
Yeah.
There is a spiritual community that is building. Now, the spiritual community that is building, it is based on writings that were done in the 70s and 80s and even earlier, 60s. We touched on it a bit earlier. The writings of about Dr. Ivan Sertima, Ben Yochanan,
About Bobby Hermit.
Bobby Hermit
was a good teacher.
He's still excellent teacher. He's still ngala.
Is he still alive?
I think he's passed.
Just as an excellent teacher.
I think he's passed.
Sorry. Continue.
So what has happened, because Sincela, the spiritual community has also suffered from ukunxela, just as we were doing with Christianity, which is from ngaphandle. and then sifundisa abantu. So what is happening in our community, abantu bafundisa from those very old sources. Now what was happening in those sources, mabefundisa certain aspects of the spirituality, because spirituality has been defecated on and itelelekile, they would always try and bring in a whole lot of science jargon to try and keep abantu, but yes, Nati, we are on the we are on the cutting edge of. So unfortunately what would happen is now they would take data from physics and science and bayenze kanje to very old principles, ama-philosophies e-metaphysics, or ngathi sibeke isimbaba sithi mhlawumbe isiqaba. Thina singabantu abamnyama-ke i-metaphysics asibhalanga ngayo, ama-principles ayo siyayifunda. Mabethi for example makuthiwa umuntu ohambe ngesikhali leyo nto kumele ihlanjululwe, that's a lesson in metaphysics. A lot of izinto zethu, i-metaphysics yethu yinto besinjani, into esiyiphilayo, it's part of a culture. If ubheka the rituals and practices esizenzayo through the different ages, umuntu wesilisa, umuntu wesifazane, those are lessons in metaphysics, of which ziphuma kuphi, ziqhamuka kumalangeni, the one teacher yawethu sonke. Besikhuluma ngani manje?
Besikhuluma nge-dark matter ne-melanin.
Yes,
relationship.
so that is what happened. So back then kunale premise abayi-creator yokuthi this dark thing esiyibonayo on our skin, this dark thing mayenzakala la in the ingra and the locus coeruleus, mayenzakala, it gives us ama functions ethu, they are happening at a higher rate because of electricity. The more melanin you have, the more electrical conductive you are because of lighting. So what the fault now these teachers would do is, because they were looking at ideas from the physics community, theoretical physics and things like that. Maktiwa dark matter, dark is black. Our skin is black. Melanin is black. When you look up the night sky at night, you see black. But when you look up, you are seeing an absence of light. It's not a thing. You get me? Just like that shadow, it's not a thing. It's an absence of something. And so because grounding that you need on this side, we theoretical physics to understand ezinye izinto. Sometimes you don't even have to search that deep. Yeah, but if you don't do that, you risk this thing which has happened in the spiritual community, which they will take words such as dark matter, frequency, vibration. There's this other one, abayithandayo, the double slit experiment. Yeah, ithathwe ke bayi mase sesithathwa zilethwa ngala ku spirituality, it becomes totally something else. The meaning yayo. So that is how now we ended up with this conundrum where abantu bethu are thinking that a chemical process that is happening within the body is that same thing which the theoretical physicists were talking about. It dark matter. So the realization back then, I'll start back then coming now, was that we can, our senses, let me rather rephrase, what's available to our senses, kuluma the universe wise, collectively, it's 90%. And then they would say everything else, what we are seeing, it's 10%. 90% we cannot see. Yabo, base bacoina this term, it is dark. Because not because it's dark ngoba imnyama, we are calling it dark because we cannot see it. We can't study it, all we can see is what it's doing. Now, in dark matter, it doesn't emit light, it doesn't absorb light, it doesn't reflect light. It's just something just saziyo ukuthi it's there. If we were to compare it to izinto esizaziyo from religions, we will say omnipresence. In him we live, move, and have our being. To use an example, njengoba sila, ida, it's not that it's somewhere out there, no. Ida. So that was back in the day, back in the 80s or the 90s, I can't remember exactly. So that's where they were. 90% is dark to us. We only have 10% available. Where came now this thing, Yoguti, we only use 10% of our brains. That's where the thing comes from. It is not something that is there. It is just something spiritual communities can build to say, if kukanjalo, that is, you can read up on it if you're ifunu. But that thing, we use 10% of our brain, it actually comes from that premise. So 90% of all this, we are unaware. We can't get to it. Today, they've even gone further now. They are saying, hey man, our universe is expanding at an alarming rate. There is this thing, a pushayo, but we can't see it. And then now they are saying it's dark energy. Now, just like dark matter, it can't emit light, it can't absorb, it can't reflect. But astronomers, they can see our universe is. And then masisisa that aspect of the Kalpa esike sakhuluma ngayo ukuthi ene njengoba nathi siphefumula uthi njengoba i-expander, it's an in-breath, and one day futhi izokwenza njani, izo in-breath and out-breath. So because bathene iya-expander and there's this pressure that if India expand, we will say there's a pressure behind to that expansion, but we cannot measure it. Now they are saying dark, like no. Because of the gravitational field. Is it gravitational? Yeah, the gravitational field that we are picking up here, land, we are actually realizing that 96% of, 69% of everything that is around us, it's dark energy. And 25%, shy functional mathematics, 25% is dark matter. And only 5% is available to us. Only 5. So that is, right now in current physics, that is where they are. This thing about the gravitational thingy, by prove, I think within the last 3 months, because of measurements that they were doing. Now, the unfortunate thing, fire that is happening in our community is that we have taken a lot of teachings from America that were actually put out there to actually dumb down abantu. Abantu now believe in a flat earth. We believe there's a dome, a literal dome above us, We've become very anti-science. And that's the unfortunate thing. So, but naturally, youth, they are losing an interest in these things. What is happening out there? If these stars are doing this, what does it mean here? Because as those are just little lights in the sky, they don't matter. Yet, the billionaires, they are preparing for life outside of orbit of the Earth. Isn't that interesting? We are fighting for land. We are being told, it's flat, there's a dome, science, NASA is fake, don't worry, it's just nonsense. Yet those who can, they are employing the best minds in the world. Elon on a space station as we speak. Maratina Tiwa. What if one day we get this land as Ifunayo and that is when the cataclysms will come?
Is there life outside of Earth?
There's no way there's no life outside of Earth. Now, it's just a question of form. What type of form is it? Is it corporeal life, flesh and blood like this? Or are they electric beings? Oh, that's what I wanted to say earlier about when I started reading Indaba,
my children.
and watching lectures, tapes,
Khokho.
Babu Mutwa. I was confronted by these.
Akusubaba ukhokho.
Khokho, excuse me.
Mdala kakhulu.
I was confronted by these, for lack of a better word, I'd say electrical beings. Hence he was my, because then it was for the first time it didn't become a theory, it was an actual thing. Lalela, there is life outside this meat suit. Because it was an experience that I had where I found myself in Vusamazulu, but understanding very well that my eyes are closed and struggling to pull myself out of myself to actually open my eyes. You know that movie in The Matrix where Neo is...
Yeah.
It kind of felt like that. Like I'm a newborn. I'm Yavuga, but I've never opened myself to this reality. So from then on, I never looked back. It's just so, yeah, we don't know the type of
life form.
Yes.
Of beings
yeah.
that are out there.
And nakhona abakanje, I wouldn't rule it out. Why? I mean, look at our Earth. It's so diverse. There's but is 70% of our globe is just water.
It's water, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Who knows what could be there? Having its own independent life. There's no way. Probability there's a lot of life. Probability there's a lot of life. And yeah, they might be walking around us as we don't know. Did you see what's happening in the States? The commission.
Mighty move States, man. Labantu latest sihlale sizibukela lama press conference wabo. Ngathi labantu abasiphethe ngesibhicongo. Unokubona abanye abantu abamile abangacwayizi, abanye bacwayizela emaceleni, abanye ngathi basishashaya man. What's going on in America?
Kibo odu. The creatures kaZahari.
And I'm interested for us to get into those conversations when you start visiting us later. It's beautiful and interesting that you brought in.
Sorry, were you answered on the dark matter, melanin?
Yeah, and it doesn't stop because I obviously have got more follow-up questions, but you can't condense everything into an hour's episode. But for me, the reason why I like these types of interviews, it's just to take the audience's brains all over the show.
Yeah.
I don't have like an agenda, or I don't have like, na myself angazi, that's why ngizibuzela ngifuna ukwazi, ngifuna ukufunda as much as I can.
Yeah.
And the information ayipheli futhi ayipheleli.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this Bible that you've just brought here, and we'll call it a Bible, Indaba My Children, Nyaka Khokho Credo. At the back, when you read it, it says, it is an absorbing collection of legends. This excellent and human book reserves a wider circle of readers. This was a comment by Times Literary Supplement back then. And then it says, the narrative of the historian turns into incantation of the visionary. This was The Guardian, quoting the book back then. And then this book is indeed epic. This was the Sunday Tribune in Durban. This is back then. Now, when you read it, it says, whenever the names look like being forgotten and the memory is overwhelmed by the events of time, the preservation of cultural traditions assume a new and more vital importance, believing that the tales he learned from the elders gave direction to his life and motivated him to further his knowledge of his people's history. Vusamazulu Credo Mutwa, through the ancient and art of storytelling, takes on that commitment to preserve, promote, and revive the past. First published in 1964, Indaba My Children is an internationally acclaimed collection of tales and legends that chart the story of African tribal life. It is through these stories that one is able to reconstruct the past of Africa. It is through these stories that intertribal friendship or hatred was kept alive and burning, that the young were told who their ancestors were, who their enemies were, and who their friends were. Excelling in the medium of storytelling, the Vusamazulu, awakener of the Zulus, provides a collection that sets the reader on a beautiful and spirited journey through the tales and legends of Africa. If there's any young person who's out there who's foreign to this type of information, who would like to start reading this type of information and dig deeper, and this is a journey that as soon as you start with one book, it sends you down that rabbit hole where for the rest of your life, you must know, or good, you'll keep on digging. So you must be prepared that once you start wanting to know more about this type of information, it's going to end up becoming a lifelong journey. And as you read, you keep coming across all sorts of different information that takes you from pillar to post. Sometimes you feel like not wisanya, and then you listen to other people. Certain things make sense, certain things don't make sense. And I guess that's why people who delve into this side of information are sort of considered amahlanya. And they are loners. And you're also saying earlier that you are a loner. How does that make you feel? And does that make you resent having gone this journey? Are you enjoying this journey? And what may be your message to other young people out there who might want to go through this lane?
I can never resent it. I've been at this for a solid 12 years now, because if it wasn't for the journey, uJesu bezongibulala. uJesu uyasinda bafethu. The expectations of Christianity are heavy on the mind of a black child. They are very heavy. And so I found myself, I come from preachers. I mean, growing up in Konzweni, I had this inclination that you need to search out the root of Lady Bible. I understand. And the more you read into it, you're not finding that root. It is only when you start reading the literature that informed what went into the Bible. It is only when you start interacting with cultural practices that later became what informed what went into the Bible. That is where I found the freedom. That is where I found the freedom. I'd never say don't take the journey. The journey will open you up, not just spiritual wise only, but in general, your mind will expand. Your interest expands. If it's Khuluma Inzalo LaNGa, we start touching on a bit of archaeology. If we have a mind for such things, ungangena lapho. When we start delving into the lessons about astrology and astronomy, if you have a mind for those things, ungangena lapho. Don't listen to these people about flat earthers, and if that will take you to, I want to be an astronaut one day, that is where these things, that is what it can open up for us. Because right now we are very closed up as abantu abamnyama. There are career paths out there that such knowledge can open you up to, where you can realize that actually this is what I'm naturally gifted at, which is something we are still struggling as abantu abamnyama, which is something we need to figure out quickly as abantu abaphila in the type of economy that you have, walking in line with your gift, riding that wave yakho. And such thing is as annoying and difficult as it may be, and it's not difficult. The only difficulty is that it was never really drilled into us growing up, ukuthi there's fiction and there's non-fiction, and then there's writers who take the two and they do this. And then it's your baby, ukuthi how you figure it out. No one took the time to actually tell us, ukuthi guys, that holy book, it's not based on literal events. You know, we are still working from a very literal view. So now when you take that and you come here, it becomes a problem, because you are still trying to place the writings within a certain time frame that we've been taught of 6,000 years. And you understand? Whereas just nje cycle A1 LaNGa, it takes, depending on which system you are using, it takes 24,000 years, you know? And here you are, when if you grew up in this system, we are being told of this timeline, 6,000. So this thing, it opens your mind up. A few years ago, umuntu when he says evolution, I'd go, that's devil talk. But once you start opening such things, that is when you start realizing that, no, man, there's more to this human experience than what's been contextualized for us in that Bible. Because the context we have of the Bible it was given to us, you know. Ellen Watts, Peace and Love Unto the Ancestor, can't remember which book that is. He's like, actually that book, we should actually take it and lock it up for 100 years so that we can forget all the conditioning that we've received, so that we can re-look at it with new eyes. So yeah, I would never say start mfethu, especially for abantu abanezikhwama, abantu who've been called to do certain work. If you do not get your mind frame right, I help abantu with the process of deculting. Khipha yonke leya ganka egcwele la. Gcwele into eziningi in the mind of a black child la. There's many I don't want to say philosophies that you know, violently for other people. Abanye, you can actually pick it up mabekhuluma ukuthi kunempi la. So the process of deculting, of which if it doesn't happen, where you go through that process where you decult even your premise of ubunkulunkulu. I know at some point it was a good idea with an city, no, we're doing away with the Father in heaven. Now we are placing a female in heaven. And I am saying even that has its own limitations. So I help abantu go through that process. What I've realized over the years is I find abantu sometimes they want to go through the deculting process sebephume ephehlweni already, and it becomes very challenging. It's very challenging because now the premises are set, and lo muntu lo hamba na angithi bathi bazothi na idlozi liqala lincane and then it blossoms. But now it is blossoming in the context ila. It's blossoming, but now it has its own knowledge. And it's, in a knowledge set ehamba now. This is where now you will find because Christian fundamentalism and the nature or the fluidity of what is idlozi or a guardian, you know, and then huge debates in my comments, a guiding spirit or whatever you want to call it. It can create loggerheads or very ugly situations where umuntu can actually end up in a psych ward if these things are not sorted out, because we live in the flesh. We were created for the flesh. So now, if all of a sudden I start seeing abantu abayi-20 engihamba nabo, and no one has given you that place to decult and do shadow work comfortably, ungekho under duress or anything, utshengisa ukuthi no, this idea iphuma lapha. This idea, you see that star there, lesi sibiza iqhuba nkomo, bona bayibiza kanje. This idea iqhamuka la. And then all these dark spaces, yeah, you start shedding light. And then umuntu aqale uyadedela all these preconceived ideas, so that mawungena ephehlweni ungena with a blank slate. That is the mission for us. Ufaka abantu laphayana with a blank slate, and then abaphumayo sikwazi ukubahlanganisa with abayayo or abangeke baye. The more we have abantu abangena ngalena with a blank slate, is the more sizokwazi ukuba nabantu abaziyo ukuthi it doesn't matter ukuthi which aspect of this you are using. What matters is how are you using it? How is your Christian Kung Fu? How is your Dlozi Kung Fu? How is your Kemet Kung Fu? Is it working for you? By their fruits ye shall know them. Are we seeing the fruits now? Or it just ends at a place where we are arguing, you are like, you killed our people. Oh. They killed our people. I won't listen. You did this. You did that. Because that is where sometimes life iphelele khona, and that unfortunately is where the learning stops. So in the coming age, or the age that we are in of Aquarius, we need to realize the oneness of all these teachings fundamentally. Because if we are not there, we are just going to keep tearing at each other. And it gets bad with my families. Umuntu kube nabantu abalalayo kuxatshenwe manje umuntu usengalena, you know, umuntu hamba uxabene over very simple, you know, omunye 3-4 generations down the line kunento mhlambe kwakumele kunesithunuko nje esasenzekile, into very simple, but it can't be, that knot can't be released because the family is structure yabo, they are Christian, abafuni ukwazi anything. We're talking about the light spectrum earlier. I wanted to go into njengoba sifundisa ngokukhanya ukuthi uNkulunkulu is light. Now when you take luminance from LaNGa and you run it through a prism, remember the thing we used to do in school, only then you realize ukuthi within that light there's the darkness of when there is no light, or the set aspect still within that light, and then there's that 7-ray band. Roy G. Biv. Then there's that 7-ray band, which we have available to us. And then anything above 400 nanometers, we cannot see. And anything below 700 nanometers, we cannot see. Now, in the Christian fundamentalist construct, anything that is not within that law, I'm a demon. It's either demons or angels. So what we find happening is that the beings that are below that 700 spectrum, that is your infrared, and you know, those would be your lower type beings. And then anything above that 400, there will be your higher beings. Bazothi, those are the angels. And then lezi ngaphansi bathi those are the demons. Kandi it is just lifing over and above what is currently available to you in your senses. And ila siqala khona with abanye abantu who are just like yey. Yabo, we're like no asibuyele eklasini. If you can just appreciate that ukuthi with these eyes this is what is available to you. Ne? We have ukuthi this is what is available to you. We have ukuthi, and if this is what's available to you, there is also other things ongakwazi ukuzibona. Not because they are evil, they are madimoni, or uNkulunkulu uthe if awuziboni then akumele uzibone. That is just how life is. The same way right now, in your bloodstream right now, there's a war going on between is it the red blood cells and what are the other ones? The white blood cells. Ziyalwa. Which side do you pick? Because to pick either side, you just bulala. We start opening umuntu up to such conversations. I remember the other day I saw a thingy, umuntu ethi, they thank God for, it was American, which they thank God for slavery, because if it wasn't for slavery, there would still be a pagan in Africa. Lana, you'd actually hear about it. If it wasn't for apartheid, I wouldn't know about Jesus. I am Christian first, then I am African second. So that is the work, trying ukuvula ingqondo yabantu. And bazokuthuka hey, but isiyehla manje because now I've formalized it. I'm getting more comfortable in the role and realize ukuthi mbeko izihlwele zenu, this is what they are here for, bridging this gap, because I come from a family where isihluthulile man. Isihluthulile. Till this day, ugogo, peace and love. Even uma wami mekhuluma uzothena umkhulu was a herbalist. Kid mami herbalist inyanga hayi. Yeah, well, that is the level of awareness that is in our blood, and it's up to us ukuthi sikwazi ukuyivula. Otherwise we're not going to understand ourselves. We are not going to understand ourselves because we are we are multidimensional. Without getting into the warm and fuzzy stuff. But nje, our being and our nature and this thing yokuthi electricity wise, we process it better, we generate it better. It opens us up to a whole range of awareness that we need to be able to appreciate.
Does it get lonely?
Nah. I think I was prepped long enough. Yabona kade ngisebenza bengihlala ngiyi-1. I'd go to work, come back. When I was in the continent, I'd go to work, come back. You're alone. If you are lucky, there would be crew, then you can go hang with them. But normally I'd be alone. Sometimes I would be working odd hours. So at any given time, between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., I'm awake. You know, if you are meditating around that time, you can get a lot of, things just zifika kahle, and I think ngijwayele da. So where I am manje now, Shem, angikho, it's not lonely at all. It's not.
You have kids?
Yeah, 4 kids. Khona okumela vele nje, but abaka decide kahle ukuthi.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I got 4 kids, happily married. My wife Naye, she is a person of the cloth. As far as is seen to cloth, I don't mean as far as is seen to. When we had to go work, Sodwala Caves, she's actually the one wearing Bambisandla. Yeah. But yeah. That's the setup. Maybe that's why I'm not lonely.
Kuyinkungu manje, I'm watching this episode kusesemnyama kumina. Ngifuna kuvuleke. Ngiyeza ubhuti busisa ukhuluma ukuthi uphethe le Bible enithi Indaba My Children by uKhokho Credo Mutwa, the African tribal history, legends, customs and religious beliefs. What are other 3 books you can send me as a young person for me to begin this journey? Recommend 3 books.
I'm bad at that.
Okay.
And remembering names.
1 book or 2 books.
So rather let me put it like this first. Once you get into such writings, make sure that your hunger for tribal history usudilile nayo. Yeah, because there's a lot of people who come to such writings banqaphe, because they expect ukuthi what they know and what is written here, they expect it to ukuthi hlangane. So
they expect it to make sense.
Yes. And ubaba yena him, he was building as he was being instructed, so that we are basically teaching all things using one thing. That's what it is. So first and foremost, I would say sort out your hunger for history. History, I don't know any authors. Who do I know? South African authors, history. Niyazazi bafethu, sort out your hunger for history. And then more qeda lapho, because you get bored eventually. Eventually you'd get bored. The writings of Ndate Runoko Rashidi. Yeah, as far as history.
Runoko Rashidi.
Yeah. He's also passed on, peace and love unto the ancestor. Very detailed. Yeah, very detailed. Another scholar who did great work
Runoko
is
Rashidi. Okay.
Dr. Ivan Sertima.
Dr. Ivan
Sertima.
Okay. Makhanye mkhulu siyabonga. Sibonga isikhathi ukuyivala.
Oh, and then I'll say, when you want to start getting into ngala, figure out qala ufuna ukufundani na, what is your best means, what is your learning method that makes sense to you. Because abanye abantu, they are not for reading. Abanye abantu, they think mathematically, if I can put it like that. So if umuntu njalo, it's always easier ukuthi if ufuna ungena la uqale mhlambe with numbers, numerology and things like that. If you're interested in the stars, ngena ngeenkanyezi, you know, uthole indawo that you will be comfortable as your entry point. Yeah. Last remarks, thank you, brother. Thank you for the opportunity to come through. I didn't think I was going to be able to talk this much.
I think for me, it's the beginning. I'm glad we finally met. Jeez, you're tall. You're taller than me. I didn't even know. You know, the thing is, I know you through TikTok. So as we meet,
I used to be a ball player, man. So besikhulisana ngenkani.
Jeez, you're very tall. I'm looking forward to our next engagement when you do come back to Johannesburg.
Definitely, when I'm fit. Yeah, I will. I was fearing it because, like I said, I prefer, especially because of the subjects, I prefer lecturing. I prepare, have the thingies, and then I present. Kuluma is not my thing, but I must say, ihambe kahle.
No, ihambe kahle. For me, angithi yokuqala iphushele phansi.
Oh.
Ngisho microphone ephushele phansi kule stand kanje. No. It pushele phansi.
Oh. Yes, there we go. Okay.
Yes.
Dum.
Just no. So for me, it's a first conversation, and it's fine that it's all over the show. It's good. Makes people think.
Yeah.
Makes people back piggy. You know, I mean, you're in this space. You know, see, siyaphikisana njalo online. Abanye bethi siyathukiwa, and I'm sure you are used to all sorts of different types of energies.
One thing I can add is I don't like talking about aliens because I feel like it's a waste of time. We talk about aliens and then
what?
And then what? You understand? If for me, where I am standing in the background, if you're going to talk about aliens, you better tell me what they were traveling in. You know, what's the propulsion system? What's the philosophy of the craft they were using? What is the... Tell me that so that I can be like, okay, how can we reverse engineer and use it? That's where I would rather be in fit. I'm looking at a space where AI is moving rapidly, and already we are having issues with employment. So we need to go back to inkaba yolwazi lethu so that we can be able to self-sustain, build eco-friendly homes that can be warmed in winter without needing izinto eziningi, homes that understand the trajectory LaNGa and how to heat and cool homes naturally. This thing yokuthi umuntu uzokutshela ukuthi mina nginevutha ngikwazi ukuyisenda eEgypt ivutha ngila, but we can't use ivutha to warm our homes. It doesn't make sense. For me, isikhwama esingcolile lesi, isikhwamaekusamele sikwazi ukuphakanyisa, sikwazi ukuphilisa, and more uphilisa udakhi wonke. Kunasana izinto ekusamele sizi-unpack ukuthi once sazi-unpack, we can't even sithi siyokwenza intellectual property. We unpack it, we dump it kubantu, so that abantu, and this is around building this structures like ama-cob homes, finding different ways of generating electricity using biomass, using our own feces. You know, when I start, they're like, you know, gas from you know, so that we can slowly but surely start building. And when I say this, it's not because I am anti-government. It's just the reality of where we are, where our labor is becoming, they are squeezing us day by day for our labor. So if you cannot have a place where you are like, ayazi ngishap, ngizibuyela emhlaba uyalingana, ngizibhekele inkomo zami da, and live in my... We need to be able to give our people that. We need to be able to give our people ability, yokwaka, proper structures without needing any material. I know it looks far-fetched but we can do it without going to build it or wherever one of these, not to speak against Gabi about these companies that sell building material, but the reality is majority abantu bethu are at a place where you cannot even afford those things. You understand? So we need to find ways through lolwazi lwethu, creating structures that we can comfortably see kuzo. So that as these jobs, I remember last year, I wanted to learn computer philosophy, as in the foundation. I'm about the devil in the detail. so that I can get into coding. Yeah, well, not just understand them. And this person I was asking, he's in coding. Ati, excuse me, I wouldn't do that if I was you, because coders are not going to be needed very soon. Even people who understand computer philosophy at that base, because AI is just going to do zonke lezo zinto. Who was it? One of the employees or ex-employees at Google, he said, everything that people are hired for right now, as far as coding, programming, zonke, AI will be able to do fully.
Yeah, he was on the diary of
Thank you.
Diary of the CEO. That was a brilliant interview.
It was.
I forgot his name. Let me get you his name quickly.
So as far as self-sustenance is concerned, we really need to get our acts together without relying on outside inputs, but relying on what was left for us by our ancestors. And the quicker we do this, the quicker we realize, okay, can we use it? We get practical with it. We can't use. Sizekle. Because there's a lot of mirages right now in our community. There are a lot of mirages, things that look like they are zinamandla, and it's just trickery, you know. So the sooner we do that for ourselves, I would say the better. Yeah, man.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu for isikhathi mfowethu.
Bonga mina.
uNkulunkulu aqhubeka kubusise babaqhubeka babe nabo phansi. Siyabonga umoya. Siyabonga nesikhathi.
Likewise. Sivala ngeLord's prayer ngithi.
Ngajabula kakhulu.
Siyivulile ngithi.
Ngajabula mfowethu.
So ke singabalandeli belanga sifundisa the 12 positions of the sun and how they correlate to the 12 parts of Israeli, or the 12 parts of the body, or the 12 parts of the temple. So I taught this to my kids. They hate it because they have to touch themselves. So siqala la sithi baba wethu osekhaya ezulwini. Say it with me phela.
Baba wethu wasekhaya ezulwini.
Baba wethu osekhaya ezulwini.
Okay.
Next time we will break it down, ne?
Yeah.
Baba wethu osekhaya ezulwini. Malingcweliswe igama lakho.
Malingcweliswe igama lakho.
We are at the pineal. That's the pineal. Umbuso wakho mawuze.
Umbuso wakho mawuze.
Imibuso in our lives. Imibuso that we must build collectively. Siqala ngolimi. And then
the word.
Intando yakho, your will.
Intando yakho mayenzi.
Your will be done on earth. This is your earth, I mean. This is your earth. As it is in
heaven.
When the will from heaven is in alignment with the executors of will, isinkwa will be sorted. Give us this day our daily bread. That is isisu. And then mase sihlezi phansi sadla siyaxolelana, we go to the kidneys bese sithi forgive us our sins as we forgive those who trespass against us. From lapho we start thinking about procreativity and the next generation. Bese sithi lead us not into temptation.
Lead us not into temptation.
That is your pirate part. Ne? Lead us not into temptation. Help us not overuse the electricity which is now conditioned as seed. Kumuntu wesifazane nomuntu wesilisa. Let us not misuse. Masuka lapha bese sitheni forgive us or lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evils of spilling too much. Bese sithi for thine is your kingdom. Those are the thighs. That is the support for the kingdom. Squats will do a lot for you if you know how to do them right. For thine is your kingdom. Size madolweni. Size the power.
The power.
Size imlenze, your calves. And glory. Bese siyofika ezinyaweni.
Glory.
The age where we are coming from, Pisces, sits forever and ever. Amen. That is a lesson now through the 12 signs of the ecliptic that we can take from the lesson from umzimba size siyongena ngempande.
Nasihlala the next time ngizongena some more kuleyo conversation, but as sesivalile and just the last question.
Yeah.
You've just reminded me of something. What is the importance of semen retention?
Ngizoyibeka kanjani without sounding too so ngokwemfihlo yangale sithi imana kunemana ifikayo every month ngizoyibeka kanjalo abanye bathi imbewu so mayifika le mbewu ifikela ekhaya ezulwini or the holy of holies in your classroom, in your cherubim, and then besiyehla through the ventricles. I can't remember the systems. Iyehla, basically, mayehla, it crystallizes as seed now. Yeah. So bese bathi ke through retention and keeping a tithe and returning a tenth back to heaven, you are also aiding yourself in your awakening journey. Ukuzivula, through not spilling too much. Abanye, they will go as far as saying gray matter, some of it iyahlangana into fluids, iyehla, and then becomes what is now that seed. So now when you are not spilling all that low, you are returning. It's like that snake feeding on its own tail, basically. You are rejuvenating yourself. Yeah, that is why you can contextualize about you are returning a 10% tithe. Because that fluid, my nyuka ibuyela la ekhaya ezulwini, that is your awakening process. But it's an entire process. It's not just about you blocking your nuts. It's a whole process, like you were saying. You need to live a certain way. Get off the sugar. Do not. I know this one normally gets me a little bit with people. Do not get your heart too highly elevated, because most people think I get my heart elevated. I'm doing a good. Your heart, if we're to think empirically, you have a certain set of heartbeats. If we ask those heartbeats, your heart is iphelelwa yilo amandla, because it's an organ. So in these systems, bazothi, get into habits that slow down your heart rate. They slow it down. That is why abantu, when they get into these deep meditative states, I hope I won't get it wrong. Abanye, they will use umuntu athi heartbeat it drop maybe to 9 beats maybe in a minute. When they get into that, it's an entire process. That is why dala bekuba neindawo in the mountains or deep in the thingy, where abantu who want to live that and have that inner vision, they would go baseklude baphile leyo mpilo. Manje, it's very hard, the hustle and bustle. You cannot. That is why India boomed at some point, even today to a certain degree. Remember, like this spiritual renaissance that happened in India? Yeah, because people were you get to a place where you are doing nothing else, but you are just looking. And that it can be quick, it can take them years, because you are dealing with you. You don't have anyone who's like, you are if you are dealing with you. But it's a whole process. It's a whole process. But if it's something you are doing it just for health implications, you most probably can. But please balance it out with diet, because these days are suffering there's also the issue of prostate cancer. So if you are doing that and your diet is not balanced enough, and now your prostate is taking strain, again, you're gonna have issues. So it's the food. If you sort out the food, then but it is a thing. Some people rubbish it, But the more you get into the occult philosophies, even my systems and also abanye they would go as far as saying impande yentwaso ibiyivala i-root chakra. Ngci. Even if ungayicabanga, but down there it's and then there are other philosophies who are like, no, thina siyinyusa ngayo. That aspect, we use that aspect ukunyusa ukudedela umbilini. It depends which path you are using, the left-hand path or the right-hand path. But it is a thing, yeah. It's an actual thing. When nje each group yakho, according to that path, kumele ngabe udedela once a week. But that is not to say you cannot reach the O. You can reach the O. Hey, we are the little children.
No, they must learn. It's fine.
You can reach the O, but don't dedela the seed. And then kunama exercises that you do to get the muscles around that area to that space where if you reach lapho uzoyibamba the seed. And it also needs a willing partner.
Yeah.
And that is the challenge. That is why abanye will just say, I'd rather give all together, because you need a partner who's going to understand.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes they take offense when you are doing such things and abazi. Even if umtshelile, it becomes a, what are you doing? Why? What's wrong with me? Why unga? So but it's a thing. It's a thing.
Ngiyabonga umSHuMaYeli. Njoba mina songibiza umfundisi More Fire. Ngiyabonga umSHuMaYeli welanga. It's been great meeting you, my brother. Ngiyabonga mfethu.
Bonge mina mfethu.
Makwande, makhanye, makulunge, makpope, makube mocha. See you guys on the next video. Danko.